My board members up here at the front, please. Thank you. Good morning. My name is Karen Mitchoff. I currently serve as the chair of the Board of Supervisors. I represent District 4. We are so pleased to have you here today. I've been thinking all weekend long of things that I wanted to say to you this morning because, as you all know, Sunday was the 100th anniversary of the end of World War I. But I decided, since we're nonpartisan here, I'm not going to make any comments about what happened in Europe and France over the weekend. But I'll leave that to you, that we here in Contra Costa County welcome and feel privileged by everyone who lives here and who serves here, whether they are in the military, all of you veterans, for what you fought for and give to us every day to make sure we are living in a very free and opening society. I heard somebody starting to clap, so yes. And that you as veterans are the true representatives of the United States of America. With that, we are going to begin with the presentation of colors by the Concord Veterans Memorial Building Association. Gentlemen, please stand if you are able.
So proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleam, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight, for the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streamed. Bursting in air gave proof
Good morning, everyone. Happy Veterans Day. Thank you for being here. I'm Nathan Johnson, the Contra Costa County Veteran Service Officer, and I want to You never fail, Sandy. I want to thank again the Concord Veterans Memorial Building Association Color Guard for providing our color guard today. If you're not familiar with what they have been working towards, they have formed a nonprofit organization that is focused on building a brand new Veterans Memorial Building in Concord to replace the existing one on Willow Pass Road. So really appreciate their efforts today. And if you didn't notice, Nancy Hudson was holding a box, a gift box, because the Blue Star Moms do a lot to send care packages overseas to our deployed troops. So if you didn't pick up on that, that was a really nice touch to the color guard. So I also want to thank our Vietnam veteran who has been consistently here every year singing the national anthem, Richard O'Connor. And I want to thank his new addition this year, Brooke Beckham, an 8th grader from Danville, if I have that correct, and just sang very beautifully. So a round of applause for our color guard. Again, I want to thank everyone for being here this morning. This is Tuesday, November 13th. Veterans Day has already passed, but it means a lot to me that you would take the time, even after Veterans Day, to honor this day. And I know, like for me, and many of you, this was a very busy weekend. There was a lot of events going on, Friday, Saturday, even Sunday on Veterans Day, and even yesterday. So many of you are probably absolutely exhausted, and it means a lot that you would be here. And we'll celebrate this day through our ceremony, and then we'll enjoy some barbecue afterwards at the Veterans Memorial Building. So thank you. I also want to thank, of course, the Board of Supervisors for hosting this event. This is one of 3 opportunities in which the board takes time out of their agenda to really honor a unique population. And so Chair Mitchoff and other members of the board, I want to thank you for making sure this is a priority. Yes, ma'am. Supervisor Candace Anderson. Supervisor John Joya. Supervisor Diane Burgess. And I saw Supervisor Federal Glover earlier. I know he's here. So Supervisor Federal Glover is joining us today as well. I also want to thank our County Administrator, David Twa, for his support. And I want to thank Chief Deputy County Administrator and Army veteran Eric Angstadt as well. And the reason I'm thanking them is because I believe Contra Costa County has the best veteran service office in the entire state. And it is because our county administration and our county board really believes that veterans are a priority in this county. And establishing us as a department, supporting us with appropriate amount of resources, people, money, equipment, and with a community presence as well is very important to me. So I do want to really share my appreciation to everyone who supports our office on a daily basis. Again, thank you to all veterans who are attending here today and to the family members of veterans who are here as well. I want to thank our planning committee. This has been something we've been working on for several months. And we've been meeting and having discussions and have done some unique things this year that we've never done in the past. So I want to thank everyone individually who is on our planning committee, because their participation is not required. Their participation is completely voluntary. So although they're very busy already in their lives, they take the time to think about this day, this ceremony, and how we can best honor our veterans. So Jen Kwolek, stand up, Jen. Colleen Eisenberg, James Lyons, Dominic Aliano, and Don Morrow, all the way in the back. So a lot of people have already commented to me this morning about how wonderful the programs are, and they are very beautiful. They're really well done this year. So I want to thank Don, who created the program, actually designed the art and put it all together. So thank you very much, Don. I want to thank the Veterans Service Office. This is a unique opportunity for me once a year to really show my pride in my team. The folks that are on the front line every day at 10 Douglas Drive, in San Pablo, in Danville, in Brentwood, or over at the VA clinic at the CREC. These are the folks that, many of them are veterans, not all of them are, but something that they all have in common is that they really love veterans and they love serving our community, veterans and their family members. So I want to thank our Executive Secretary, Susan Ferguson, also a Blue Star mom. I want to thank Melissa Mowgli, who is our clerk. Josh Lang. Josh. Many of you saw Josh this morning. He probably helped you get here because if you parked over at the marina, he was your shuttle driver. So I want to thank Sydney Jones, Air Force veteran. And Sydney runs our outstation in Brentwood on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Thanks to Supervisor Burgess, of course. Someone who couldn't be here, she is out sick. Silvana Shields is a veteran service rep in our office. Mike Hofschneider, Army veteran. And Mike runs our outstation in Danville at the Veterans Memorial Building there on Wednesdays. Jenna Galvin Spears. And Jenna runs our outstation in San Pablo on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Buck Carmichael, our boot. Buck is an Iraq War Marine. Fred Schobert. Fred is a retired Navy sailor, and every Wednesday goes over to the VA clinic to be bedside with some of our hospitalized veterans to help them file for their VA benefits. A really important program. And of course, our Jill Martinez. Also a Blue Star mom. Her son is serving active duty in the Navy. And Jill has been retired from Contra Costa County Veterans Service Office since 2011, but continues to work as a volunteer in our office. I want to thank the Martinez Veterans Building. I don't know if anyone here is, yeah, I see Kathy back there. So I want to thank the Veterans Memorial Building for hosting us for our barbecue afterwards. This is the second time I'll say it, but I'll say it probably another 3 or 4 times because I really want you to know that after this, we'll be feeding you a very delicious barbecue at the Veterans Memorial Building, and our vans will be driving you the short 2 blocks to get there. But I want to thank them for hosting us for that event, and I want to thank Wiley Henry, another Vietnam veteran, Purple Heart recipient, who's not here, but he's over there cooking right now, and we'll get to meet him later. Do we have any Gold Star families here today? Okay. Well, I do want to honor them. And I know that Kevin Graves who works in our office, is a Gold Star father, and he could not be here today. So we have Pearl Harbor survivors here. We have Chuck. Where are you at, Chuck? I saw Chuck. Is there any? Stay standing, Chuck. Stay standing. Oh, thought I'd catch you in time. Did I forget anyone else? I know I have elected officials to recognize, and I will do that, but did I forget any other dignitaries? Maurice Delmer from the Concord Vet Center. Thank you, Maurice. Maurice and I worked pretty hard playing softball all day on Sunday. We're wiped out. I'm pretty sore today, Maurice. I don't know about you, but that was a fun Veterans Day softball tournament that the city of Concord hosts, and it was our 6th tournament this year. So getting young veterans and family members out into the community. Sir, you had your hand up? Okay. Contra Costa County is home to over 55,000 veterans, including 5 generations of combat vets. Some survived Pearl Harbor, served on the beaches of Iwo Jima and Normandy. Can our World War II veterans please stand up? If you remember last year, we didn't have a World War II veteran here for the ceremony, and that was pretty hard. So really appreciate you being here, Chuck, not only representing Pearl Harbor survivors, but also representing our greatest generation. And we know that it's very difficult for some veterans to get here. So please take back our appreciation and love to all your other brothers and sisters who served during that war. Thank you. Many served at the Pusan Perimeter or at the Chosin Reservoir. Can our Korean War veterans please stand up? Many served in heavy urban and jungle combat in Hue City, Long Binh, I Corps through 4th Corps. Vietnam veterans, please. And many served, this is interesting. I was 10 years old when this happened, but I remember it very distinctly. It started on my birthday, January 16th of 1991, and those that were participated in that were involved in a very oily and smoky desert, just a really nasty war to fight, in my opinion, a very quick war in Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, and Iraq. Can our Desert Storm veterans please stand up? And many are serving today in places, very hot places like Syria, and believe it or not, we still have troops in Iraq. We don't talk about that. It's not really in the news, but we have service members deployed still in Iraq and in Afghanistan. In fact, some of you recently came home from Afghanistan. So can our Iraq and Afghanistan and Operation New Dawn veterans please stand up? This one's for you, Lauren. Most importantly, many served stateside preserving peace. As our country has not seen a peacetime period since 1990, one generation that is quickly disappearing are those, or that continues to disappear, are those who served during a peacetime period. Will those veterans, Cold War era and other peacetime eras, please stand up? And many, of course, are still serving as active service members, reservists, guardsmen, or family members. Our county is home to many of these service members who wear the uniform representing recruiters, the 60th and 349th Air Mobility Wing at Travis Air Force Base, the 49th MP Battalion in Pittsburgh, the 357th MP Company in Concord, the 1st of the 143rd Artillery in Walnut Creek, Richmond, and Concord, the 2nd Med Brigade in San Pablo, the 834th Transportation Battalion in Concord, the Coast Guard 11th District in Alameda, and the 6th Air Naval Gunfire Liaison Company in Concord. I know we don't see many of these men and women on a daily basis. They tend not to wear their uniforms out in public, And so we forget that we have military right here in our own county. If there's anyone who is serving active duty or in the Reserve or the National Guard, could you please stand up? Or a family member. Well, we all know they're busy. They're probably fighting fires right now is where they're at, so. Today we celebrate and thank all veterans, but today's ceremony is a commemoration of the 100th anniversary of Veterans Day, a public holiday held on the anniversary of the end of World War I to honor U.S. veterans and victims of all wars. It replaced Armistice Day in 1954. At the 11th hour, on the 11th day of the 11th month in 1918, the armistice signed to end World War I was signed with the full intent that the Great War would be the war to end all wars. As we all know, this hope did not come to fruition, but not for a lack of effort on behalf of those who fought in that very difficult war. The Guns of August, a compelling documentary, details all that took place during World War I. It provides an accurate and incredible visual about the harsh conditions, deadly fighting, and critical outcomes that were at stake. Today, I feel grateful for those who fought in World War I, and equally as grateful for those who served our armed forces since the signing of the armistice. I am also grateful for this day, in which every year we take a day to honor our veterans, thank them for their service, and remind ourselves that the price that they paid to defend our freedom and our Constitution, we should never forget. I want to take this opportunity also to invite all veterans to participate in Operation Documentation, which will be an event hosted tomorrow at the Clerk Recorder's Office, 555 Escobar Street. So tomorrow, Wednesday, November 14th, from 8 a.m. to noon, all veterans will have an opportunity to record their DD-214 at no charge and have their veteran status verified for DMV so that you can put the word veteran on your driver's license. We did this last year, and it was incredible. The turnout, we got smoked. We were working very hard. And we didn't know that many veterans, new veterans, really existed in our community. So if you participated in that last year, please tell other veterans in your life, in your community, your neighbors, your friends, your family, please invite them down tomorrow to come participate in Operation Documentation. Let us help them also understand their VA benefits. I want to acknowledge our elected officials and grab my list real quickly. I think it's important that our elected officials are here. Some of you are newly elected, so it's particularly important to recognize you and introduce you to our veterans community. But of course, our chair of the board, if I can reintroduce you, Supervisor Karen Mitchoff. And again, Vice Chair John Joya. Supervisor Candace Anderson. Supervisor Federal Glover. And Supervisor Diane Burgess. On behalf of Congressman Mark DeSaulnier, we have Megan McCrane. Stand up, Megan. Thank you for being here. On behalf of Congressman Mike Thompson, we have Rebecca Roberts. Thank you, Rebecca. On behalf of Senator Bill Dodd, we have Teresa Carr. Thank you, Teresa. On behalf of Assemblyman Tim Grayson, we have Alejandra Sanchez. Alejandra, thank you. We have former Concord Mayor Dan Helix. And we have newly elected City Council member and a part of our advisory committee, Dominic Aliano. I also want to honor and thank some of our department heads for the county. Bob Campbell from the assessor's office. Bob? Auditor's office, excuse me, auditors. Our auditor, not our assessor. My apologies. And our Chief Probation Officer, Todd Bellicci. Todd? And did I miss any other department heads or any other elected officials? Don Morrow. Oh, Don Morrow is on our East County Sanitary. Okay. Don Morrow from the Sanitary District. Thank you, Don. I got a list right here, Don. And Sharon Anderson from County Council. Thank you, Sharon. We also want to acknowledge all of our veteran service organizations. This county is a very welcoming community to all of our veterans. And what makes this community so welcoming is the strength of our veteran service organizations. They do a lot for our community, and many of them are here today wearing their hats, wearing their shirts, proudly representing the VFW or the American Legion or the Marine Corps League, many of them which I won't mention, and I don't have simply enough time, but if you look in your program, there is a list of these organizations. And I'd like to invite any veteran who is a member of these veteran service organizations to please stand up. Thank you for being here today, and thank you for all the hard work that you as veteran service organizations do every day. If you remember last year, we honored these veteran service organizations, and we had an opportunity to show off their color guard in front of the building. So very, very unique to this county, that the strength of our veteran service organizations. This is one of my favorite parts of today, and that we are having a special presentation to honor a very unique person that I don't know if this person's ever really been honored in this way. So it is a privilege to be able to do so. And Chair Mitchoff, if you could join me. I want to mention, and I have already mentioned her name, and she is a jewel. Jill is a jewel in our office. Without her, we would not be able to survive some of the very challenging, demanding days. And without her, we wouldn't be able to fully understand some of the very complex programs that the VA administers, the pension program in particular. I really think it is incredible when a person so dedicated to their community, so dedicated to veterans, who completes a 35-year career, 39-year career, it's written here, finds that she, in her heart, can still spend 30-plus hours a week volunteering her time as a veteran service representative in our office. So today, Chair Mitchoff will present Jill with a resolution. So Jill, if you could please come up and join us, we'd appreciate that.
I love it. Nathan's notes here say nice things about Jill. As if he needed to be reminded. You're welcome to take a seat. I'm going to read this because I think it is important. Someone with 39 years of history serving Contra Costa County and the veterans. I've been here almost that long, and I don't remember a time when Jill Martinez did not work in the Veteran Service Office. So, whereas Jill's family has a long history of military service. Her grandfather served in the Army in World War I. Her father served in the Army in World War II, and other family members served in Korea and Vietnam. And as Nathan mentioned earlier, currently her son is a commander in the Navy, and she is a proud mom and grandmother. Jill started her career with the county in 1971 and previously worked for social services as a clerk and eligibility worker. She started working in the Veterans Service Office in October of 1986, and she was the first female non-veteran to be a Veterans Service representative in Contra Costa County. She retired from Contra Costa County in March of 2011, and as you heard, she continues as a volunteer Veterans Service representative. Her colleagues appreciate her institutional knowledge and devotion she brings to the team. She is known as the subject matter on the VA Disability Pension Program. You can't leave us. She provides numerous presentations to senior centers and care facilities throughout the county, and she is well-versed on county social services and is able to assist in complex cases such as working with our homeless veterans. Jill enjoys spending her time along the Delta. She travels regularly, hence being a volunteer. But she enjoys the most is helping veterans in the community and their families. She has received numerous awards and recognitions from the United States Department of Veterans Affairs, Contra Costa County, and veteran service organizations in the community. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Contra Costa County Board of Supervisors recognizes Jill Martinez and honors her countless volunteer hours and service she provides for our veterans and their families throughout the county. Please give her a wonderful round of applause. We're going to take the family photo after, but I'd like to offer Jill the opportunity to make a few comments.
John, Joy, and I go way back, 73, 79. Tom Powers was on the board. I've been through a lot of people, and you never think you can find something in your life that is your passion career-wise. I know a lot of people don't want to get up and go to work, but I found my passion after doing welfare, that this was it. I stayed on the list. I was number 11 on the list. Couldn't even get an interview because they could only interview the top 10. So I stayed on the list. 2 years later, I got a postcard. They didn't want to do the test. Are you still interested? Ernie Bradford, 20-year retired First Sergeant Marine, hired me. They were looking for somebody with a social service background. And now that we are counseling our aging veteran population, they don't know how to take care of them. I took care of my dad, World War II, for 8 years. I just was able to find the job that I fell in love with. Also, the people. We have totally changed the staff. Mike and I have been there together for 8 years now, 9. We've kept the people of the same fabric, the same intent, goal, love, care to help our veterans. And let me tell you, our office, we are known, we get calls from all over because other counties would love to have our department. I just got a call from Shasta. They would love to have us. And we've just, all our staffing that we've replaced, Nathan, the service officers, everybody, wonderful, caring, loving people. And that's why everybody wants to come to Contra Costa County, especially our surrounding counties, because they do not have what this county has with the support of our board. They tried to close this department in 1982, and Scott Tandy was the deputy at that time. And all the World War II vets came in, and you don't fool with us. After that, Scott Tandy told them, we will never bother you again. The veteran population has grown. We're so busy now, we're as busy as when I started with Ernie Bradford, just him and me in that office with Dorothy as secretary. We had 3 people. Never stopped ringing. I took work home. I worked weekends just to keep up with all the paperwork. And thanks to Nathan and modernizing us, we have direct access to VA computers. We're accredited, everything, and you want to know your status, we can look right in the VA computer and tell you. Other counties do not have that. And let me tell you, they want to come to us, big time. But I'm glad I've been able to retire on Friday volunteer on Monday. And they have allowed me to stay and do this and have the passion of my life, and I will continue to do so. Thank you.
We got her, guys. We got her. Thank you again, Jill. And this is another special part of today's, let me stop. Susan Hsu, I forgot to mention Susan Hsu, who is the director of the Office of Communications. So, Susan. I don't sleep very well the night before this event. I don't know why. So, but this next part of the program is very special because two members of our planning committee, James Line and Colleen Eisenberg, along with CCTV and Nathan Altamari in particular, put together a very beautiful video that takes a look at the perspective of our combat veterans who have served since World War I. So if we could just enjoy this video together. I don't know where Nick is at. He's already doing his thing. So please enjoy the video.
My name is Earl J. Kohler. I served in the U.S. Navy. When I was discharged in May of 1947, by then the war had been over for about a year and a half. So we were no longer the returning war heroes. We were now looked at more as competitors for the jobs, the cars, the homes, the available women, right? You know, whatever it was. And so it was better to wear civilian clothes.
I'm Don Long. I was also Navy. The first 50 years, 40 or 50 years, we did not talk about it. That the sights that we saw and things that happened, they're not the kind of thing you talk with your young children about. They're not often very happy things, and so we kind of steered away from it.
I'm Dan Helix. I served in the Army, enlisted as a private, January 12, 1948. Retired as a Major General, August 31st, 1989. Airborne Infantry. I knew I had changed in the military. I think that when you have a experience, especially in combat, yeah, it does change you. I think that in some cases it can be even transformational.
It was difficult after I got back from Vietnam. I had a great deal of pride in the service that I had done. And so it took me several years to kind of resolve the conflict that I had between my experience in Vietnam and the way it was portrayed to the public.
They said, by the way, if you're going into the city, don't wear your uniforms. I go, what? So you don't want to wear your uniforms, you get in trouble. And I was really, and that's when you've heard cases of military people being spit on and stuff. And it was true.
Obviously, we don't have the same struggles as the guys who came back from Vietnam and the way the public treated them. But I think the struggle is that there's not as many of us, which makes it difficult when you get out because you don't have that person to relate to.
My name is Brian McGill. I served in the Army from 1986 to 1992. I'm a Desert Storm veteran. We love this country. All the camaraderie, all the discipline wasn't there anymore. It was now I had to do it all on my own. I didn't have somebody else helping me.
Huge change from going from military life to civilian life. And I came from a military family, so I knew that was going to happen. But even with that knowledge, it didn't matter. It was still a time of kind of great unknowns and personal development.
I felt a little bit lost, honestly, at the beginning. My career was steady, my home was steady, everything was steady. It was just the mindset that it took me a couple of months to really realize that it was over.
I was pretty, I don't want to say disgruntled, but maybe not as, I wanted to kind of leave the military behind. I think my experience, I didn't embrace it very much, and I definitely wanted to forget a lot of things. I completely wanted to move on from the military and do something else, but I found that to be very difficult.
You know, after 6 months, I was okay with, you know, not having to talk about it all the time, or knowing that it's something near and dear to my heart, and that's okay. Like, if it's not the first thing that's off my tongue every day, it's okay. You know, I still am a Marine, I'm still a veteran, and my experience is still true and valid.
I've learned to adapt to not being in a structure, you know, making my own rules, living my way.
Each generation that has served can take pride in the fact that they represented their country. And I think having the anniversary points out that we do take the time to recognize that service. So it's an important milestone.
Armistice Day always was a day of some kind of celebration in the little towns where we grew up.
To have Armistice Day have been transitioned to a Memorial Day essentially just for veterans, because Memorial Day is separate, and this is just a day that highlights what veterans have done. I think there's some significance to that. And so you have a day that represents a day of peace, from a very, very violent conflict at the turn of the last, or beginning of the last century. I think that's very important, and that transcends to today, because now we have this tradition in this day that all veterans can be recognized for whatever their efforts, no matter whether they went overseas or they didn't, or they fought or they didn't, their service and their sacrifice is honored and recognized.
My father was a World War II veteran. In fact, he served in Pearl Harbor. When he came home from World War II, his experience was extremely different than my experience coming home from Vietnam. And yet, the experience that my son had coming back from Iraq was very different. So I can see the veteran experience from very different perspectives. I think the way veterans are seen today is much different than when I came home from Vietnam, and I'm very grateful for that.
Many times I've had people thank you for your service and all that, and maybe sometimes it sounds a little superfluous, but it's nice to hear. I'll tell you, it's nice to hear.
Just keep supporting the veterans. I think that's very important. And it is recognized, and it is a lot of vets I talk to do appreciate it.
Because you get the classic line, the thank you for your service. And that's fine. I think for a lot of people, even though that's kind of been made into a cliche, I still appreciate it. Even though I know, because sometimes that's the only way people know how to convey their gratitude, because they don't understand what it was like to be a veteran, and they're not going to, and that's okay. But to just say something as little as that goes a long way. And then for people to understand the true meaning of Veterans Day, just from an educational standpoint, is important, because that also conveys to me that, if as someone who is not a veteran, that you care.
I think people, the way that they can truly honor us is that knowing that the veteran experience for a lot of us is something that we've known a lot of people who have sacrificed everything for this country. And you don't have to be a veteran to at least recognize and understand that. And I think that people, when they truly take the time out of their day, just for 1 second out of their busy lives, to recognize, okay, this person put their life on the line and probably knows a lot of people who did give the ultimate sacrifice. If they are able to just recognize that, and if they see a veteran and just thank them truly for their service, I think that is more than enough that I think the average person in society can do.
We're not always recognizable. We don't wear this kind of stuff all the time. But when they do, we're not looking for pity. We're not looking for sympathy. Just a thank you. Thank you for your service. A handshake is all that's needed, right? And between us old vets, just a salute once in a while.
I guess that's the best that I can answer that without Google or research in front of me. Yeah. Okay.
Was there anything you'd like to?
All right, thank you again, CCTV, Colleen, and James. That was wonderful. And of course, Chuck and Dan Helix as well. Moving forward in our program, I want to now introduce our keynote speaker. And Lieutenant Colonel Mike Hudson is originally from Concord, California, and is a 1996 graduate from San Diego State University. He enlisted in the Marine Corps Reserve in 1993, graduated from basic training with the rank Lance Corporal. He attended OCS and was commissioned a second lieutenant in 1997. Lieutenant Hudson completed the basic school infantry officer course and was assigned to 1st Battalion, 5th Marines. Lieutenant Hudson served as platoon commander for 1st Platoon Alpha Company, 1st Battalion, 5th Marines from 98 to 2000. During this time, he was deployed to the Westpac with 31st MEU. In 2000, Lieutenant Hudson received orders to the Marine Corps Recruit Depot, San Diego, and served as a series commander, company executive officer, and company commander with Lima Company, 3rd Recruit Training Battalion. Lieutenant Hudson was promoted to the rank of captain in 2001. In 2003, Captain Hudson assumed duties and responsibilities as a platoon commander, 8th Platoon, 1st Force Reconnaissance Company. He attended Amphibious Reconnaissance Course Airborne School, SEER, and USMC Combat Dive Course. In 2004, Captain Hudson deployed to Iraq in support of Operation Iraqi Freedom. After 2004, Captain Hudson assumed duties and responsibilities as the Assistant Operations Officer for 1st Force Recon Company. In 2005, Captain Hudson took command of Lima Company, 3rd Battalion, 3rd Marines, and deployed to Iraq in support of Operation Iraqi Freedom. He returned from Iraq in 2006, was promoted to the rank of Major, and assumed duties and responsibilities as their operations officer for 3rd Battalion, 3rd Marines. Major Hudson then deployed to Iraq for a third time from 2007 to 2008. From 2008 to 2011, Major Hudson served as the inspector instructor for 4th Force Recon, which is located in Alameda. In 2011, Major Hudson planned and conducted the annual multinational Sea Breeze exercise with a Ukrainian Naval Special Warfare Detachment in Ochakov, Ukraine. Following I&I duty, Major Hudson attended the U.S. Army Command and General Staff College, and during this time also completed a master's program from Central Michigan University. In 2012, Major Hudson volunteered for the Afghanistan-Pakistan HANDS program, APAC, and completed Pashto language training. In 2013, Major Hudson deployed to Kandahar, Afghanistan, and served as an advisor in support of village stability operations as a member of Special Operations Task Force South. Major Hudson was then promoted to the present rank in October of 2013 and served as the operations officer for the Small Wars Center Irregular Warfare Integration Division at Quantico, Virginia. In 2014, Lieutenant Colonel Hudson completed Pashto language phase 4, and from April through September of 2015, served as the G3 advisor and lead advisor at Camp Commando in Afghanistan, his 5th combat deployment. In May of 2016, upon selection of command, he executed orders to command Houston, Texas, where he was assigned as I&I for 1st Battalion, 23rd Marines. Lieutenant Colonel Hudson is married to the former Cristela Aguilar of San Alejo, El Salvador. They have 2 beautiful children, Gabriela and Yelena. On a more personal note, I've known Mike now for a little over 10 years. And when he first reached out to me, he called me and with the idea that he wanted to organize a bike ride from San Francisco to Camp Pendleton with the intent of raising money for a local nonprofit veterans organization. Now, 10 years later, this very same bike ride has developed into an annual fundraiser for Sentinels of Freedom Scholarship Foundation and has raised tens of thousands of dollars to support severely wounded veterans. Now that Mike has retired and he and his family have returned here to Contra Costa County, he has already been very active in the veterans community and have spent several evenings speaking at events such as this. It is my strong belief that as a county, we are very fortunate and we will greatly benefit from having Mike Hudson and his family back home again. Please join me in welcoming Lieutenant Colonel Mike Hudson.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you. Good morning. I will get Nathan back for embarrassing me like that, so that's, but I'm kidding, of course. I'm grateful to be here. It was outstanding to see the national anthem performed by Brooke and, of course, by Richard. Richard, I remember you playing for us on the bike ride. I believe you got a parking ticket out there that Nathan was supposed to pay. So maybe we can settle that today with the county, but pay that off. It's an honor to be here, seeing the work that was put into this, the work that our volunteers do on a daily basis to honor veterans on Veterans Day, Memorial Day, in between, the tireless work that is done at the county center, and of course with Maurice and his team in Concord, and my mother being a proud volunteer there. They haven't asked her to leave yet, so she's doing something right. Talk to Maurice about that offline, though. He said counseling notes. But no, I understand what it takes, the overtime, the core participants in these volunteer organizations that do the lion's share of the work. So thank you very much. And most importantly, thank you, veterans from World War II to present, for sharing your stories. That history is difficult. It's difficult to remember those and recall those painful moments, but at the same time, we had a lot of funny and hilarious moments that we want to share with our families, the ones that we can obviously share with our families. So we often say that as veterans, we write that blank check, basically say, hey, I'm giving you 4 years of my life, do with me what you will. The reality may be a little different. Could be that trip to the mailbox, suddenly, congratulations, you've been drafted, something my generation of veteran does not really fully appreciate or understand. Or it could be simply maybe one too many at the bar and now you have a date to go to recruit training. But however you got there, you served, and here you are to tell the story. So please tell the story so this history is not forgotten. As you know, this marks the 100-year anniversary of the end of World War I, the war that started with a wrong turn on the streets of Sarajevo and ended at a cost of nearly 40 million people. That includes the military and civilian casualties. The war was fought on the high seas and the mountains, of course. It was in the deserts. It was fought in the air. And of course, the fields that we're very familiar with in France and Belgium. It was a war that demonstrated the heroism of individual soldiers, airmen, sailors, Marines, medical personnel, while also bringing to light the foolhardy will of uncompromising governments and despotic leaders who were willing to sacrifice and to destroy an entire generation. Lambs leading lions with a reckless disregard for humanity. Now, one would think that the war taught mankind a lesson, but as we knew, it would not. World War I paved the way for World War II, another war that, of course, the United States would have to end, just like we did in World War I. Now, I assure you, World War I would have ended without the intervention of the United States. The outcome, of course, would have been much different. Now, despite our late entry into the war, the United States endured roughly 6 months plus of combat, about 200 days in total. But still, despite that small amount of time on the ground in the fight, we lost 115,000 soldiers, airmen, sailors, Marines. Now this, of course, disease, machine gun fire, artillery fire, poison gas, led to the deaths and the casualties, killed by the thousands. Their heroes emerged, like the soft-spoken Sergeant York, who gladly accepted the surrender of an entire company of German soldiers, or Major Whittlesey of the 1st of the 308th Infantry, known as the Lost Battalion. The Lost Battalion's actions in the Ardennes assault, of course, preceded the Armistice by only a few weeks. So you'd think that moments like that, and of course, the most important battle, in my opinion, Battle of Belleau Wood, as we know, Marines are very quick to bring that up, is a very important part of our history, which it was. Basically, the German was on his way to France, and he was stopped on the wheat fields and in the forest, in the dense vegetation of the Belleau Wood forest, and where he was stopped and sent back. The Germans definitely had the advantage, of course, after the fall of the Soviet Union in 1917, or excuse me, the fall of the Russian Empire, the dawn of the Soviet Union, and their disinterest in the war. And of course, that's when we entered the fight, at a moment when Germany almost won. But what became of our veterans after the guns were silent? Where did our warriors go once the parades and celebrations had ended? Ernest Hemingway writes a short story called Soldier's Home, named Soldier's Home. The short story is about a Marine named Krebs who returns from occupation duty in 1919, long after America had forgotten about the Great War. And Hemingway is famous for what he doesn't say or what he implies, more or less, more than what he actually says. But Krebs simply is never really understood. He just comes home. So that's an important thing to think about when you think about our generation of veterans as well. Hemingway also describes the overpromise on the veterans' hospitals. The idea that somehow machines and industrialized medicine will fix these horrific wounds, the mental wounds, the physical wounds. He describes the machines that really did nothing except provide false hope. Now, Hemingway, like all of us, know that the wounded, of course, would have to wait until technology and advances in science would one day catch up to the destructive power of modern weapons. As all warriors know, war is a simple reality. Regardless of who is in office or how prepared or unprepared the military force is, war will come. Preparation for the certainty of war is essential for survival. Theodore Roosevelt and his family understood this truth. Sons Archie and Ted Jr. organized students at Harvard University and prepared for the reality of combat totally on their own. They formed the ROTC, the Reserve Officer Training Corps. Kermit Roosevelt, one of Roosevelt's sons, volunteered to serve in the Canadian Army and served in Iraq in 1917. So Iraq is not exactly a new thing for the U.S. He suffered from invisible wounds that many of us deal with on a daily basis. These wounds would later actually destroy his will to live and take his own and cause him to kind of take his own life. Quentin Roosevelt, the youngest son, served as a pilot and was killed in combat. The Roosevelt family provides an excellent example of service and sacrifice, a basic snapshot in the war as a whole. Ted Jr. and Archie, of course, as we know, served with distinction in both World War I and World War II, and like their father, leading from the front the entire time, demonstrating the highest levels of courage. As I examine the history over the last 100 years, I wonder how we went from organizing the ROTC on our college campuses to some of the destructive protests and the Occupy movements that followed. The trend of blaming the service member for the failure of our leaders began in the mid-1960s and continued through the 1970s. One might wonder how this happened. Now, a friend of mine who unfortunately passed away in August is an author of a book called 1968, Year of the Monkey. It's quite a book. Brian Smothers writes about his time in Vietnam during the Tet Offensive, during the Battle of Hue City. He was kind of at the wrong place at the wrong time. This is a guy who got drafted. They wanted to make him an officer. He said no. They did make him a sergeant, sent him to Ranger School and all that sort of thing. And he said, okay, why me? And just went out there and did it anyway. He executed. He takes on the many myths and misinformation that flooded our televisions and newspapers during the war. The journalists, along with even a future senator, spent a great deal of time focusing on U.S. atrocities, which of course were minimal and pale in comparison to the communist atrocities that were simply part of the daily routine. Also during Vietnam, 100,000 Americans fled to Canada. We know that from history. However, what we don't teach our children, unfortunately, is that an almost equal number of Canadians came to America and joined our military. I guess we got the wrong end of the deal on that one. But we also hear about the thousands of Vietnamese civilians fleeing the communists after the fall of Saigon. This, of course, was a promise that the anti-war movement made that North Vietnam would honor the Paris Peace Accords. Of course, that, as we know, didn't happen. But we also know about those who were left behind, but we also know that there were 10,000 refugees that fled from North Vietnam, not to the south, but out to sea. Some of them ended up in places like Houston, Texas, San Jose, California, and other areas that we know about. But it was definitely not a people's war, and communism was not good for anyone. Vietnam, like the Great War, was widely misunderstood. As the Great War lured the naive to think that it was the last, Vietnam was believed to be the cause of American aggression. Communism to some was not the evil that it truly is, or not seen as the evil that truly is. The path to victory in Vietnam was so misunderstood that we even failed to recognize it when it was within grasp. There's a legendary photo, probably some of you that lived during this time would be familiar with. It's a photo of the commander of the 8th Tactical Fighter Wing, United States Air Force. I give credit to everybody. I would say that the Marines in Hue City, and that's the most important part of Vietnam, but of course, I've got to be honest. There's a colonel, commander of that Tactical Fighter Wing, sporting a large mustache as he talks to President Lyndon Johnson, then President Johnson, explaining why the president's strategy in Vietnam was horrific and crippling restrictions were prolonging the war and setting conditions for failure. So Robin Olds, of course, known for flying his F-4, leading his pilots into combat, flying at 450 knots over 25 feet, and visibility that's worse than the smoke conditions we have out here, and hitting their targets, even though the effects of hitting those targets had little or nothing to do with the overall outcome and victory, something he tried to fix later as he went back to Vietnam when we actually had the intent of winning. Today, my generation of veterans is greeted warmly, thanked on numerous occasions. Our wounded veterans receive some of the best medical treatment on the planet, but still we are largely misunderstood. We are stranded by a political divide to ask us to take sides. But perhaps our recently elected veterans who share different points of view will find a way to promote civil discourse and still seek to solve problems rather than politicize them. Now, some politicians have said that America is not great. We are a racist nation with skeletons in the closet. We certainly have had regrettable moments, and we do have problems to resolve, but no nation has done more for the needs of others, and no nation has done more to set others free than the United States of America. No more has done more to free the oppressed. Those who continue to minimize our achievements and badmouth our nation have no place in leadership positions of any kind. Do not think that the anti-military aggression witnessed during and after the Vietnam War cannot return. If you wonder what that looked like, and I'm speaking more for our younger generation who has no idea of what it's like to be spit on for your service, take a look at how we treat our police officers in the media and the rhetoric of some of our elected officials. You can say that, well, there is such a thing as police violence, suppression, that type of thing, but the statistics prove otherwise. Our police are the targets of radicals, and their numbers and their line of duty deaths and mishaps have increased in recent years. So I would say, if you really want to appreciate what that was like for our Vietnam veterans, take a hard look at how we were treating our officers and think about that for a second. Because right now, members of this community, law enforcement, firefighters, have joined forces with the Butte County Sheriff's Department. Many of those officers lost everything, yet they're on the job. They do it for us. They put the community, the citizen, over self, and it's about damn time we recognize them for that. In closing, America is a great nation because of our veterans and our first responders, and more importantly, our families who shoulder a burden that few understand. Now, as long as we have a small group of committed warriors and supportive families, we'll maintain that status as a great nation. If you enjoy freedom, thank a veteran. But I would also include a first responder when you thank that veteran. And in closing, last but not least, something that's very near and dear to my heart, in less than a month, the Army and the Navy will square off once again in a football game. 2 years. The Army has gotten lucky with an easy schedule, I might add. Go Navy. No, I'm kidding. Thank you and God bless you.
Well, I didn't have the honor or privilege to serve under Lieutenant Colonel Mike Hudson, but if I may say, and I think many of you would agree with me, that it would have been quite an opportunity to serve under his leadership in the Marine Corps. So thank you, sir. Before we move on, I want to mention someone that I forgot, and that's representing Congressman Jerry McNerney, Tito Ramos, an Iraq War Marine. And I want to now introduce our last portion of the program before the ceremony concludes, and that is Vietnam veteran Bill Nelson, who will read a poem for us. Bill?
Wow, what's something to follow? Great man. You know, I've been privileged, and thank you, Nathan, and the county. This is the third year that I have been asked to come and talk. And last year, my poem was about all veterans and how it takes all to make it work. My father was Army. I was in the first cab, he was in the first cab, but he fought on Leyte and in the Leyte campaign. My uncle fought on Okinawa as a Marine. I had two uncles that were in the Navy. We had great campouts and great talks around the campfire, making everybody angry about the other guy. And to you, you know, my uncle that was in the Marines would always say, "Do you know why they have Marines on ships? It's to teach the Navy how to dress." There's something that is brand new. If I wouldn't have had this film, it would have been watching this and listening to you would have inspired me to write this. My heart is really for the veteran, but the combat veteran, the one put in harm's way, because all the service is aimed at supporting that person placed in harm's way. And there's a brand new thing that's come out. It's fairly new, is thank you for your service, which, as you said, is very, very appreciated. And so this is how my poem reads. Thank you for your service. With pride, a simple thank you. Thank you for commitment. Thank you for giving. A special place for those in harm's way. Life forever changed in oh so many ways. So many sounds, wounds, scars, seen and deep within. A special place, a special grace. Smells, sounds, memories ever present, the good and not. Some recalled with tears, some a smile. Felt by those who listen, understood by only those who walked this same road. Different places, times, smells, sounds, memories. A special place, a special grace for those placed in harm's way. Thank you.
Once again, I want to thank all of you for coming. I want to thank those who are here representing our elected congressional and assembly and state legislators. I was a staffer once, and I know this is very important to our veterans here in this office and at this event. Not to keep you from lunch, but I did have a few closing remarks. When Nathan came to meet with me as chair about this year's veterans event, I recalled that it would be the 100th anniversary of the end of World War I. And as many of you know, I love to read. But it was because of an event that my dear friend General Helix had at a Veterans Day event several years ago, commemorating the Korean War. He had a speaker there who talked about World War I. And you mentioned, sir, about teaching each generation. I'm not young anymore, but I'm not that old either. But we didn't learn about World War I in high school. We learned, and I was part of the end of the generation on Vietnam. But the speaker that General Helix had invited had just gone to Officers War College or something, and he talked about World War I, and I realized, oh my goodness. And so I went and bought one of those idiots for military history books and started reading it just a little bit, and that's how we got to the Guns of August. And it took me the 4 years of the war to finish reading it, but it was very sad, and you know more, so if I say something now, I'm going to be really embarrassed. But what I recall was it started in August of 1914, and the French and the Germans and the Belgians and the English, and not till later United States, and the Russians were in this, and there was a lot of warfare those first few months, and then it was just, there were still battles, but that's when the entrenchment came for the next 4 years, and what we hear about, those horrible fields and everything. I'm sure there were many other battles, but that's what struck me, that for 4 years, there really was no way to move forward, and then they finally did. The other book I would recommend to you, I just finished reading the latest John Grisham, which is called The Reckoning, and there is a great deal of time spent in there on the Bataan Death March. in World War II. Now, I had heard about that. I knew someone who actually survived the Bataan Death March. But again, it's not glamorized, but, oh, that was a horrible thing, and people died on the way, and, you know, I don't even remember how many people. But you don't have to read John Grisham's book, but read something, because I was amazed. And that's just a narrative story. Those of you who are veterans from World War II probably know people who we're losing them, but who may have survived the Bataan Death March. And it's just, for those of us who've never served in the military, you really need to immerse yourself in that a bit so that you understand that. I would recommend that to you. And then Supervisor Anderson and I were at the Walnut Creek commemoration on Sunday, and the military person there spoke to us about saying thank you to a veteran. But his other comment was that, as you already know probably, 22 veterans commit suicide every day in this country. And in addition to saying thank you to a veteran, and we earlier this morning recognized Homelessness Awareness Month, take the time, if you have it, but it's a gift you can give to a veteran, ask them how they are. How is their day going? Just that little bit of interaction may help that veteran who is struggling with mental health issues because of their service. And you mentioned the machines of war. Unfortunately, I think as time goes on, we get better at those types of warfare, but they create more mental, emotional, and physical anguish for our veterans who come home. So when you see someone on the street, they could be a veteran. So in addition to saying thank you for your service, ask them how their day is. And with that, go have a great lunch, have a wonderful afternoon, and thank you again to all of our veterans and their families for serving us in the United States of America.